Hey guys, what's going on? Megan here. So one of the questions we got last time was how many sets do you need, obviously in one session, to maximally reduce myostatin levels, right? So obviously if you guys remember this graph, this is all the relevant studies that show the effects of different training protocols on myostatin, from the training protocols that reduce myostatin the least to the ones that reduce to the most. And obviously you guys also know that training is by far the best way to reduce myostatin naturally, of course. But then the question arises, how many sets? How many sets do you need to get that maximum drop? Anyway, this is another episode of Myostatin Monday where we discuss everything related to myostatin, or its number one enemy, follistatin. Now, as always, the next chapter is going to be a recap of everything myostatin does and the most recent literature on it. So if you're already familiar with that and know everything there is to know about myostatin, skip the following chapter. If you're new, then I consider you watch it. All right, so long story short, myostatin is a gene. It's a protein that your body makes, and its job is pretty much to limit how much muscle you could put on, right? If it wasn't for myostatin, we will all walk around like the fucking Hulk, right? So it does four main things. It stops protein synthesis. It increases protein breakdown. It lowers satellite cell activation. And it makes you insulin resistant, which obviously leads to less muscle, more fat. So pretty much it makes you skinny fat. Follistatin, on the other hand, is another protein that your body makes, and it does the opposite of myostatin, right? It stops myostatin from activating its effects to its receptor. It also stops activin A. So this is the most anabolic molecule in the human body, follistatin. Even more anabolic than testosterone. In fact, testosterone's effects are mainly mediated through follistatin. Here are some examples of what happens when your myostatin levels are too high. For example, the reason why your legs shrink when you put them in a cast or you immobilize for a long time is because myostatin levels go up. The reason why HIV and cancer patients lose a ton of muscle so fast is also because the myostatin levels go up. And the reason why astronauts lose a ton of muscle mass in space is because, once again, when you go into space in a low gravity environment, myostatin also goes up, right? So myostatin is the bad guy if your goal is to maximize muscle growth. Here's an example of a rat at the bottom here. This is the control rat. This is a normal rat. And this is the rat that was genetically engineered to overproduce follistatin and to also lack the myostatin gene. So as you can see, that's the biggest rat we've seen in research. 4 times the amount of muscle as a regular rat, right? So, and once again, normal levels of testosterone, normal levels of androgens. It is so massive, it's not even funny. And here's what the rat looks like when it's actually alive. Straight broadly, dwarfing the other rat. And this is lean muscle as well, extremely low levels of body fat. This is the monkey that was injected with follistatin. As you can see here, this is before the injection. This is only a few weeks after the injection, about 3 months after the injection. Absurd amounts of muscle growth. And this is the 10-year-old kid who was lucky enough to be born with a myostatin deficiency. Once again, he has normal levels of testosterone, completely natty. But look at his physique at 10 years old, right? His parents were freaked out. They brought him to the doctor. And yeah, he's healthy, perfectly healthy, normal levels of androgens. Didn't even go through puberty yet. Yet he has more muscle than the average grown-ass man. Once again, this is what happens when you're lacking myostatin or you're overproducing follistatin. And again, the reason why professional bodybuilders look so fucking huge is because one of the main effects of testosterone is to interfere with the myostatin pathway, mainly by upregulating follistatin or increasing the activity of the IGF-1 pathway. Several studies also back this up. As you can see here, one of the most important transcription factors, in fact, the most important transcription factor for muscle growth is accurin 1. You can see here the correlation is 0.999, which is, in short, the most important transcription factor for hypertrophy. And sure enough, myostatin blocks this gene. So you want to put on gains, you have to downregulate myostatin. You have to lower myostatin. Another study shows the same thing, the correlation with the amount of gains you put on after training and your ability to lower myostatin is negative 0.82, which is massive. Myostatin is also the reason why old women put on a lot less muscle than young men or old men after training, mainly because they have a hard time lowering myostatin even when they train. As you can see here, old men have a big drop in myostatin after training. Young men have the biggest drop in myostatin after training, which is why, again, young men put on muscle so fast. Young women, decent drop, but old women struggle to lower myostatin, which is why they struggle to put on muscle mass. And several other studies confirm this, as you can see here. one of the main reasons why women cannot get as big as men, even if you inject them with testosterone, is because their myostatin activity is way too high. Myostatin is also responsible for insulin resistance. So if you have a dad bod, you skinny fat, you have that tie around your belly, well, chances are you have very high levels of myostatin. Next, myostatin is also the reason why those who train with full body workouts or with high frequency tend to put on muscle so fast, because the drop in myostatin after training only lasts for less than a day, right? The drop peaks at the 8-hour mark, and then slowly after that, myostatin goes back to baseline, right? It goes right back to fucking up your gains. So that's why those who train more frequently, just full body workouts, nucleus overload, tend to put on muscle so fast, right? They're constantly keeping myostatin down regulated. Myostatin is also the reason why people who supplement with creatine tend to put on more muscle. It's not just the other effects of creatine, it's mainly that creatine also is a very, very powerful myostatin blocker. As you can see here, this is the drop in myostatin from the group that trained without creatine, and this is the drop in myostatin from the group that trained with creatine. Huge drop. And lastly, that's the reason why the World Anti-Doping Agency banned every single agent that drastically blocks myostatin or increases follistatin. So if you want to lower myostatin, you're going to have to do it naturally. And I have a ton of videos on that. Just watch the playlist. All right, so back to the question. How many sets do you need in one workout session, obviously? Very simple, guys. It's the same amount of sets that you need to maximize muscle protein synthesis. Remember, building muscle is simply maximizing, increasing net myofibrillary protein synthesis, right? You obviously want protein synthesis to be higher than protein breakdown. So if you already know how many sets you need to maximize muscle protein synthesis in one session, then that's all you need to know, because that's all that matters, right? At the end of the day, all we care about is maximizing this right here, right? RNA translation, aka protein synthesis, right? Remember, all of the noise in the fitness industry, the research articles, the biology textbooks, all of the noise when it comes to muscle growth simply boils down to 1 and 2, okay? DNA transcription, RNA translation. That's it, right? Everything boils down to this. So if you know what maximizes myofibrillary protein synthesis, then you also know how hard you have to train to maximally lower myostatin, right? Because it doesn't matter how much you lower myostatin if it doesn't translate to protein synthesis. And from almost all of the research that is out there, it seems to be about 5 hard sets, which is why I always prescribe 5 sets in all my programs. I don't care if it's nucleus overload, HSP training, right? Somewhere around 5 sets, give or take, right? Depending on your genetics, your train status, all that stuff, is where you maximally maximize myofibrillary protein synthesis, mTOR activation, IGF-1 mechanical growth factor activation, P70X6K, the entire pathway that leads to you building bigger muscles. Seems to max out somewhere around 5 hard sets. And I have to say hard sets because obviously the effort that you're putting into every set counts, right? If you're doing 10 sets, but they're bitch sets, you're obviously wasting your time, right? So somewhere around 5 hard sets, right? As you get closer to 6, 7, 8 sets, you're just getting far more fatigue, far more muscle damage relative to the return that you're getting on muscle protein synthesis. And this is the same in rats and in humans. You don't need more than 5 hard sets per muscle group to maximally lower myostatin and maximally increase protein synthesis, right? And keep in mind, this is referring to one session, right, in one day. Because remember, the biggest drop you get in myostatin tends to be around the 8-hour mark. After that, right, within a 24-hour period, it starts to go back to fucking your shit up. Which is also why in almost every study out there, especially on trained men, the muscle protein synthesis response after training usually goes back to baseline around the 24-hour mark. Some people less, some people more if they have a lot of muscle damage. All right, so I hope that answers that question. 5 hard sets per muscle in one workout session is all you need to maximally drop myostatin, mRNA, and activity for at least the next 24 hours. All right, I'm out of here. All right, guys, don't forget to like or share the video, subscribe and hit the bell, and buy my HSP Nucleus Overload Training Program. It's the ultimate program for maximum muscle growth. It includes full body workout splits, bro splits, push-pull, home workouts, you name it. Also comes with a complete guide for macros, nutrition, fat loss, muscle growth, hormones, including a meal plan. It's pretty much all my 16 years of experience condensed into one fucking book. You're also going to get free copies of any future edition. So visit Team3DAlpha.com and you can use the 40% off coupon code Nucleus Overload. Or you could just buy the shit at full price. Alright guys, I'm out of here.